Aaron Lewis from Liberty New Brett Norfleet here with Tommy Lepore here from Hello everyone, welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast powered by Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. Go check out the show we had with Dave Pinning. It was a lot of fun, first show of the year. Enjoyed talking with him. Those guys are headed off to the big convention. They're going to be down at the convention.
They're going to Nashville?
Yep, they're going to Nashville. Going to be checking out the scene there, so hopefully we'll get a chance to talk with Dave a little bit and whatnot. So they're heading down for the big one. What is it? ABCA?
ABCA. Yeah.
ABCA convention. They're headed down that way. So got a lot of good stuff. Remember, the discounts are there. January 7th is the last day for the club discount. So if you got your club and you need your discounts, make sure you get that paid by midnight on January 7th. That's this Saturday. So check that out. And you got the 3 for $30, 4 for $40, 5 for $50 until February 7th. So, and not to mention, we got a new partner. Come on, guys, down there in the South, Prime Sports. And as you can see where Kevin is sitting, we got the old Prime Sports web link right there. Prime Sports Sporting Goods Midwest, Prime Sports Midwest, I should say. Rick Ben, Sal McGee down there. They got a whole store. Baseballs, they got equipment, they got everything. You can go online at primesportsmw.com to check out what they've got online. Order up today. They do team sales, they do uniforms, and not just baseball. They do team apparel for all different sports. So check those out. I think, do you guys use Prime Sports Midwest?
We do not.
Okay, just checking. Didn't know.
I would tell you who I use, but it would kind of contradict your.
Don't worry. Yeah, I didn't know. I wasn't trying to force it. It's not that, man. I just was asking a question. I shouldn't have put you on the spot. My fault.
No, you're good.
But check out primesportsmw.com. We're looking forward to getting some. We're gonna get some hats and whatnot with the new logo. What do you guys think of the new logo? You like that?
Looks good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
I thought little maturity there, nice look, baseball.
Yeah, good job. I think you did a good job.
Appreciate that.
And I don't give a lot of compliments, so.
So today, as always, joined by Matt Shadow with Midland Baseball. Matt, good to see you.
You too, sir.
And on our Prime Sports web link there, as always, the Guru. Kevin Moulder from Prep Baseball Report, Director of Scouting. Kevin, how you doing, man? Happy New Year.
Great. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It is 2023. We're done with that stuff now.
Okay,
right?
Moving on.
Yes. Let's get into it. We just posted on social media, and I want to make this clear because I want to help out my buddy over there, Kevin. I put these power rankings together myself. These are Youth Baseball Midwest power rankings for the GAC. I didn't ask anybody. I went and did my homework, my research, and we're going to talk about that today. This is based on what I've looked at and what I think, and I brought these guys on to discuss this with me. So just as everybody knows, this is Youth Baseball Midwest GAC power rankings. Go ahead, Kevin.
So we'll flash your email and cell phone number across the bottom for anyone to respond with any comments.
Exactly. Yeah, they can. You can go to youthbaseballmidwest.com. You can go to the social medias. It's up there.
And you can text and call at 636.
You can call Red Earth Productions. We got a phone number. It's 400-3199. There you go. Check anytime. I'll be happy to discuss it with you, or put you on hold.
Yeah.
Elevator
music.
But it's always fun. I've never done this before, and I thought, as we're moving into this, we did the GAC last year, and I think it's a good way to get to know some of these teams because we were talking before the show, and this isn't disparaging or anything. There's a lot of high school baseball teams out there, and as Kevin can tell you, you can't know everybody, right, Kevin?
No, there's over 400 high school baseball teams in the state of Missouri. So it's, But in the GAC and it's arguably the best, baseball conference in our state. It's certainly one or two, and I think it's a fair argument. So there's talking about the cream of the crop here. So it's fun to dive into this.
Absolutely. And you deal with a lot of GAC kids in your program, so you're seeing a lot of those kids come through, but there's still, as we were talking about, Washington is, and I think that's one of the curious things here. We're going to start with number 10 on the list here, and that's Washington High School, the Blue Jays, and they're kind of off the beaten path with the GAC down over, I don't even think they're in West County. What county? I don't know. I'm not going to go there. But it's a bit of a drive over to Washington for the schools to play with the GAC. So it's kind of that outlier. So I think it's tough because I don't think a lot of people know about Washington over in this part of the neck of the woods. Would you agree with that, guys?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I know Washington, and we kind of had this discussion off air. Washington and the Union whole area down there intrigues me, kind of like the St. Dominic area. St. Dominic School intrigues me being where it's at, because a lot of people have started to migrate out, and then a lot of people are migrating into the Washington Union area. So if you give it 10 years, I think now is the time where you look at Washington and Union and say, okay, in 10 years, the population is going to be more because people have started to move out. What does that do for their athletics and their school? Kind of like the same thing with Dominic being in St. Charles County, and people starting to send their kids there. It's going to take time, I think, for them to really get the kids because it's a public school.
Right.
But they also cracked your top 10, so they must be doing something right.
Well, I looked down at their schedule, and we were talking. They had some good wins. I mean, they were 16-17 from last year. Their biggest loss was Morgan Copeland, who was 5-2 with a 2.22 ERA. And I watched Morgan pitch against, early on in that the Midwest Classic tournament, and he pitched very well. So the kid, he could throw the baseball. Had a good curveball or a slider, I think it was. And so their shortstop played very well, and I believe that was number 2 there, Sam Pauley, who hit 316. His slash line was 316, 407, 408. And they got a lot of kids coming back. They got 12 returning seniors, guys that, competed across the board. One person that Kevin is aware of, Gavin Matchell, he hit 293 with a 337 on base and a 424 slugging with 24 RBIs, 2 home runs, and then he was 2-3 with a 3.08 ERA. So that kid's getting it done all across the board.
I think Gavin's probably going to be the key to this thing because he's affecting both sides of the ball. And with the loss of Copeland, you're looking, there's your number 1, and he's gone. And it would be kind of a natural progression for Matchell to kind of assume that role on the mound. And then he also helps out with the bat. So I think it's pretty fair to say Gavin's going to be a key cog in that Washington outfit, both offensively and, mainly on the mound. You need to replace a number 1, right?
Exactly.
They've got a lot of seniors. So, seniors, we've discussed on this show many times. I mean, if you're senior heavy, you're going to normally compete.
Right, because the experience level.
Correct.
And then, Matt, you're looking at a couple guys. Here's Ian Junkin and Grant Trentman, who also pitched well last year. One was 3-5, 5-4. It's kind of indicative of the record. But a 2.94 ERA and a 2.64 ERA, that's solid.
Yeah, I'm more interested when you look at the kids they have coming back, the 5-4 record, meaning he had at least 9 outings, right? So another kid, Ian, was 3-5, so he had at least 8 outings. So they're at least getting something back with experience. They're not just throwing a bunch of kids out there that were sophomores or freshmen last year, which for them it's. Look, anybody can beat anybody, but they're going to have experience from last year. Now, how hard they throw, I have no idea. But the point is, they at least were there, so they know what they're getting coming into the next season.
And I think, depth, of course, is always what we talk about. They're Class 5. They're in the GAC Central. You got 3 guys that can start on the mound for you, and that's what we're seeing here. Plus, you got a couple of juniors that, as sophomores, were contributors. Landon Boston was 275, 367, 362 as a sophomore. Not horrible. Getting your feet wet at the varsity level. Weston Meyer was 293, 337, 424. So you got a couple of juniors that played a part in that are coming, or a couple of sophomores, they were sophomores last year, juniors this year, that played a role in this team. So that was a lot of the reckoning as to why I believe this team deserved that 10 spot. Can they, but, now it's, proof's in the pudding. Can you win the conference? Can you be better than that 500 or close to 500 mark? So, any last thoughts there on Washington, guys?
I don't have any, no.
Okay.
I think that's a fair spot to slide them into that top 10, and it's going to be, it's going to be fun to see how they do this spring. And looking at this roster, it gets pretty stout towards the top of your rankings. For them to be considered on the list is, that's saying something to be in this company that is on this list. So it'll be fun to watch them throughout the spring.
And that's it. And that's those things get tough when you start looking at that in that middle kind of there. There's a lot of teams that are right in the edge, and I could be wrong on this one. I could be. We'll see, and I think that's the great thing about this. We got number 9, St. Charles West. Nuru Allen, the coach over there, they had another really good year, 15-6 last year. They're only returning 6 seniors. The loss of Josh Newell, I think, is going to that's going to be interesting to me, because you're having to replace basically a D1 talent, and I don't know if you can replace. How many guys can you put in there? Is somebody going to step up? And I think that is going to be what is at the core of this, especially with only 6 returning seniors. You're going to have to rely on some guys, some youth, which they do have. And we're going to start with the returning seniors here. Drew Blassingame, 400, 600, 700 slash, 2 home runs, 25 RBIs. You've got Barrett Disselhorst, 375, 437, 453 with 16 RBIs. Kyle Quinn, who was second team all-conference, 318, 423, 530 with a home run and 23 ribbies. And so right there, you got guys coming back that are contributing. And I love the fact that not only contributing with the bat, but run production. 25 RBIs, 23 RBIs. That is huge, isn't it, guys?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Absolutely. Those are big numbers. And the thing that jumps off the page to me about St. Charles West, and I say this with respect to other players, but I think for a specific team, I think Josh Newell is probably the biggest loss of any team for any team to deal with in the GAC. I'm not calling him the best player, but if you look for the impact that he created on his team, I find it hard to argue that he was the most important player on this whole list to his team. He was obviously the number 1 pitcher in an impact number 1 pitcher. I remember we'd talk over the past couple of years how if St. Charles West was playing you, even if they were stepping up in class and playing a bigger school, you didn't want to see Josh Newell. Like, they could beat someone, quote unquote, better than them with him on the mound. He was that type of arm. And then obviously he's going to create an impact playing shortstop and in their lineup. So again, not saying he's necessarily the top best player that was lost, but for what he did for his team, to me, that's going to be a big one for them to overcome, because they're having to fill the number one spot in the rotation, the amount of innings that he threw. So not only, hey, who are we starting, but like the amount of innings that kid covered, and then obviously his effect on the defense at shortstop, and then also offensively. So there's a lot to replace there for West.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin's dead on that one. I think the big thing for them is going to be Blasting Game coming back because he's second team All-State as a catcher, and catchers are the leaders, so he's going to have to be the leader for the team coming forward. But if they can get – because with what they have returning, if the guys returning can do as well as they did last year, maybe even a little bit better with the bats, they're going to score some runs. It's can they shut people down. So, can the arms step up and really keep them in games in the certain games? Because I think the offense from what they did last year and who's returning is going to kind of lead them. But also having somebody like Blasting Game come back as a catcher, he can help with the staff when you lose your top guy. So they're going to be good. Just we'll see what happens.
I think offensively is where they're going to succeed. They got the guys coming back, and then of course the sophomore who was Brennan Goring,
infielder,
and Brennan also pitches. So, but with that in mind, the only person really you see there is Jackson Mears with any kind of experience, and he was pretty up and down last year when we saw him. We did have him at a game at the GAC Classic with St. Charles West. He pitched a really good ball game. I think he went a complete game. But are they going to get that consistency out of him?
I believe Goring's going to Mizzou, isn't he?
Yes.
He's committed to Mizzou, and that's a name that people are going to start to know. He's got some star power. Eventually, and it might be this year, he's going to be their best, player. He's one of the big bats in that class in general, puts up big numbers. He will pitch for St. Charles West. He will not pitch in college, but he's a big-time bat. He's an impact guy, and he's a guy over this spring and over the next couple of years, people are going to start to recognize as one of the top hitters in the St. Louis area.
And you guys know this as well as anybody. As a freshman, his slash line is 469, 590, 859, 5 home runs, 19 RBIs.
Yeah, his first team All-State as a freshman.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It is just impressive, and I don't care what class you're in, that's impressive. And they're going to need all of that. And then they got a couple of juniors that were sophomores. Noah Gramling, who had 357, 455, 357. Carson Quinn, the brother of Kyle Quinn, 300, 400, 383 with 13 RBIs. So offensively, I think they're fine. It's just, are they going to have that mound presence that's going to be able to keep the other team down enough? Because they're going to score runs. They're going to score runs. And so it'll be interesting to see if they get back into that district championship again as well. So moving on up to number 8, the Liberty Eagles. Now this one, I looked at this one a lot because you look at the record from last year at 14-20. They got 10 returning seniors. They were pretty awful at the beginning of the year. They really were. We were talking about Liberty going, what's going on? They got themselves together, finished strong, started winning ball games. They finished 6-4 in the Central Division or Central Conference, GAC Central. And so I looked at this, and with guys, they've got 10 returning seniors. Their biggest losses are Trevor York and Sam Gordley. Sam Gordley hit 308 with 16 ribbies, had a 310 RBI, and Trevor York had a slash line that was 380, 446, 481 with 15 RBIs. So those are their two biggest losses. But now you got Seth Bennis coming back, who 370, 463, 622 home runs, 26 RBIs, was 2-4 on the mound, but with a 1.79 ERA. And we talked about this last year, Matt. He was leaving games with the lead.
Yes. Liberty to me, was the biggest disappointment of all the teams. They started so bad they just couldn't recover from last season. And I sometimes and this is a coach's nightmare, when everybody's expecting you to be great, and then the kids think they're great, but they haven't done anything yet. And I think that is part of maybe what happened with them. I don't have any inside information, but I'm just stating from experience.
Yep.
That's why you always want to be the underdog, right? Because it gives you something to shoot for. The difference is they have one of the top arms. So, they could technically beat anybody, and they proved that last year. I think the big thing for them is who comes in after him, and can they catch the baseball and score runs? You can have a dominant arm, but at some point somebody's going to put the ball in play, and at some point you have to score.
Right.
So I would think that they would have something to prove. And they've got some good younger arms, which Kevin and I discussed last season when we talked about Liberty. And curious to see how those guys come out and if they can make an impact on them, because they all played JV last year.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think, Matt, that's a pretty fair comment. Liberty had a fairly disappointing season last year for the type of ability they have. Seth Bennis will be one of the top arms in the area, heading to Indiana as a pitcher, and looking to have a big spring. He'll be a guy that garner some attention from some pro scouts. Big time strikeout pitcher, but I think that the key to them is going to be their defense. They did not help their pitchers out much, and I think they have some other arms that can help out. Aiden Cole should be solid on the mound. They have some other guys, but I think taking a step forward defensively is going to be their key. And you know what? They can be a good team. We talked about, you look at their record. There's nowhere to hide in this conference. So if you aren't firing at your best, you're going to get exposed, and it's kind of what happened. But they do have ability. They are a talented group. Another young guy to keep an eye on would be Jacob Robinson, athletic positional player there for them. So it'll be interesting to see. Now they moved down in class. Is that correct, Brian? Did they move to the?
I don't think
GAC?
so. They're in the same. They're in the GAC Central, but I still think they're class.
Are they 6?
I think they're still class 6.
They're still 6. Okay.
Yeah.
Might have misspoke there.
No, that's because it'll be interesting.
If they're in 5, I feel sorry for everybody else.
And that's in that what we talked about. Holt is got, and we're going to talk about Holt here in a minute. Holt has got moved to the Central. So
I mixed them up.
But it's in the same school district, so you're good. All right. Here's the other quandary. And I think we got 2 teams right here at the 7 and 8 spot. And, could these guys be higher in my opinion? Yes. But I just don't know about this team. Timberland, 17 and 12 last year. A handful, returning seniors. They lost a lot of seniors last year. And they never hit their potential. Yarbury kind of had a tough season. Hatchman didn't pitch for him. It was just kind of one of those strange years for Timberland, Kevin.
Well, they did start out hot.
Yes.
They did come out of the gates. I don't remember exactly, but they were like 10-1 or 12-2 or something along those lines to start. On paper, you can. They have the best 1-2 combo in the state. Adam Hatchman heading to Arkansas will be a potential first-round draft pick. Was a member of Team USA. Mid to upper 90s left-handed pitcher, and then Jackson Yarbury, the right-hander, signed with St. Louis U, and then you had the McCaleb brothers signed with Christian Brothers University in Memphis. You got Bish, you got Ethan Wasson, so you got some pieces there. There's plenty to like, especially on the mound. It'll be interesting to see how the bats come along. This is a team you're not going to want to face in a one-game setting, if you have to deal with Adam Hatchman, it's going to be a long day. But they got to do it. They got more to prove. They finished extremely poorly last year, to be really blunt about it, and I'm sure they would say that as well. So they got to, prove, that they are that team that they were at the beginning of last season, and I'm sure they're anxious to do so.
Matt, let me ask you this too, because on paper, like you said, but replacing offensively, they got all kinds of pitching. Are they going to be able to hit?
If Hatchman throws, they could tie 0-0. I mean, the dude is unbelievable.
Yes.
I mean, when you tell me that he's like Kevin, he's going to be a first overall draft pick. Most people probably don't understand what that is or what that entails.
Right.
A first overall draft pick means you're probably going to be in Double-A within definitely the first year. But because it's the fast track, right?
Right.
He's a fast tracker. I mean, they need to get him up, and he wants to get up as early as possible. The kid is legit, and if he was right-handed, he still might be a first-rounder, but he's left-handed, which makes it even better. I think the team last year, and go back, and Garberry's going to SLU. SLU's they're D1. They're no slouch. They have 2 D1 arms. I think last year, and again, I think it comes back to the team chemistry of like Liberty. When Hatchman didn't throw, they really just started, like the rumors were out. Is he throwing? Is he not throwing? We were talking about it.
Yep.
We knew, we didn't know what's going on. That's kind of when they started to nosedive.
Yeah.
And if he stays on this team the whole time, I don't see anybody beating them when he throws.
Right.
I mean, you can put up CBC's lineup against them, which has a lot of D1 guys. The dude is good. I mean, legit. I don't think you understand what 96, 97 is. And if you can snap it with 96, 97, no one's hitting you. There's colleges that aren't going to hit you. So, and he's left-handed. I wouldn't want to hit against him. Would you? No. And I'm touting the kid because he's legit and he's in town. He's a legit kid on this side of the state. And I think people need to understand you don't find a kid like this every day. I mean, the last kid that we had that I really said a lot about on this level would have been Christian Little.
Right.
And he went to Vanderbilt, and now, where's he at now?
He's at LSU. And we were kind of robbed of, Christian Little because he dealt with COVID the one year, and then he left. He graduated early, so we didn't get to see Christian Little compete as a junior or a senior. But he was really dominant as a freshman and sophomore.
He's a right-handed version of Hatchman. I mean, when you see it, you see it.
Yeah.
And when you watch it, you're going, oh, my, no one's hitting this kid. I mean, 83, 84 that with run, hey, I got it up to 88. That you can win a lot of games with 83, 84. I got it up to 88. Hatchman's going to be at 95, 96. I got to 97, 98.
It's tough for there's not a lot of high school kids that can hit
There's
that.
not a lot of minor league players that can hit that.
Right.
If you can snap it. But you have to be able to snap it and throw some other things and spot it. But, I mean, the thing is, he throws strikes from what I've seen, right?
Yeah, he does throw strikes and was a key member of Team USA who won the gold medal at the 18U level. So,
and not every Joe Schmo is getting invited to Team USA. So
Go ahead, Kevin.
Kevin's laughing because he's probably like, Matt's never given this many compliments to one player, but it's Christian Little was literally the last kid that was this good that I can think of. Can you think of a better kid that? I mean, we had what's his name from Milbrandt's really good.
Yes,
but on this side of the state is what I'm talking about. Christian Little's the last one.
Yeah.
In our last first rounder in the area was Jacob Turner. I believe that was I don't even want to say it because I'm going to embarrass myself. Maybe 2009. So it's been a good while since we've had one. So it's going to be it'll be an exciting spring. There's a number of legit top 5 round type prospects in the area this year, which is not typical. And there's a couple of them this year between Hatchman, Zanatello over at CBC, Xander Meath across the river, Will Lippert. So, and then there's a couple other guys that, are going to have draft interest in Bennis and Campo. It's going to be fun to watch how some of this happens in the St. Louis area.
So, and like I said, Timberland could be the number 1 team. I put them down there as a lot of question marks, so we'll see what happens.
When he throws, they're number 1.
Okay. There you go, folks. There it is.
Would you agree?
And again,
he doesn't want to relay. He doesn't want to say anything because he hasn't even put out his rankings yet. We've already had to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this show.
And that's okay because this is Youth Baseball Midwest power rankings.
I'll say this. It is brave, because kids change, and I won't put my rankings out till March. Now, I'm about to go through a gauntlet where I'm going to see – last year I saw about 800 players during the winter. And there will be kids that I had no clue who they were, or I knew who they were, and they were like, yeah, they're a nice high school player that will be stars this spring because of they grew 3 inches. They got 10, 12, 15 pounds of muscle. They gained 4 miles per hour. So I'm about to see all these kids through the end of January through February, and that's, will help form some of my opinions as we head into the spring season. I think this is a good look at what happened last year, and obviously Timberland, they just ran out of gas. They stuttered. They completely stumbled from the midway point of the season on. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond from last year's season.
And and again, that's a great point, Kevin. I did this based on looking at last year, who's coming back. It's early. Something to talk about as we're moving into, the January into spring training, February, and how all this works. So I think there's a lot to see. But when you're looking at these things, as we move to the number 6 team, Holt, 21-10 last year, 10 returning seniors. Their big losses, of course, Chase Beatty, 6 home runs, 34 RBIs. Braden Edgar, 7 home runs, 27 RBIs. That's a lot of offensive production to replace, but I think they have that. You've got Gage Collier coming back, 20 RBIs, a home run. Trevor Lovell, 315, 413. He had 2 home runs, 14 RBIs. He's also pitched. Trevor Lovell was 2-0 with a 1.83 ERA. And Connor Siebert hit 389, 468, 411, 17 ribbies. Jackson Bowers was 1-1 with a 2.76 ERA. And then you got 3 really good juniors. 2 pitchers, Kyle Edgar, who was 2-0 with a 1.50 ERA. Dalton Hosack was 5-0 with a 2.42 ERA. And then, of course, the kid behind the plate who I really like to watch, he's a fun kid to talk to, is Chase Lassiter, who, was 306, 456 with 16 RBIs. So they've got, and what you're going to get with Holt. And that's why I think I put them right there. I think they could be better, but we'll see. They don't have that dominant arm. You got some really good arms, but do they have that next level guy?
I think the big last year with Holt, my big thing was all the seniors, right? Where they could beat anybody. It was the old analogy of playing a senior-heavy team in NCAA basketball. However, I think the key for them is going to be the 3 juniors. You got Kyle's brother, or Braden's brother, Kyle.
Yep.
And then Hosack and Lassiter. I think those are the 3 keys for them because they're 3 very talented kids, and they've got a lot of seniors returning with 10. But I think those 3, throwing them in the mix and having them there and having a year of experience is going to be key for Holt. Yeah,
Matt's right. The star power's in the junior class, and which could be a good thing because the seniors are going to supply a nice supporting cast and have been there and done that. They know what's going on. But I remember doing the game of the week versus Zumwalt West, and Hosack had them flat beat. He had them shut out, came out of the game, and Zumwalt West scored 3 in the bottom of the 6th, I believe, or maybe and they came back and won that game. But Dalton Hosack he's an ace type guy. He's a legit number one that can shut down a really good team, and Lassiter can swing the bat. Kyle Edgar's a really good player, so it's going to be a fun team to follow. Losing Chase Beatty, that's a legit middle of the lineup bat. That'll be a big loss, but I think they can overcome this with this strong junior class that they have. Coming from these guys have experience too. They played and started and were impact players as sophomores. Now they're juniors. I think they're in a good spot this year.
I think it's
as we mentioned, they're going to be competing in a lower class size wise. That's a big deal. So they're not having to go against Howell and Zumwalt West. Not that they won't play them, but when we get to the postseason time, they're not competing against those teams.
Yeah, Holt is moving to the GAC Central. A little shakeup because you've got North Point coming in this year. So there's a little shakeup. I think Francis Howell North went back to the GAC South. And so there could be some class. And so that could be a preview to what we see from Misha, which we won't know for a little bit as far as the class is what Kevin alluded to. So I think it'll be really interesting once we get there. Why move them to the Central? It'll be interesting to see. But, of course, Zumwalt South was in Class 6. Of course, Liberty is Class 6. So it's a mix in that Central Division. So you have some of the lower population schools in the Class 6 in that Central Division. So they try and keep it in that fairness group. So I think is interesting. I love the fact, and when I was looking at this, one of the things that we always talk about, you guys talk about this a lot, is having that strength up the middle. Every baseball team is built from the middle out. And when you got a guy returning, especially like a Chase Lassiter, behind the plate and you got good arms, I think that just bodes well for a team. You got that leadership, you have that person that's been there, and not to mention his offensive presence. It makes an impact for any team moving forward. So I love those things. Okay, Zumwalt South, 20-9. They relied on their seniors last year pretty heavy. They got 3 returning seniors. But as Kevin, you talked about that when we did the game with for Zumwalt East. They were starting, 4 sophomores in that game?
4 sophomores, yes.
So this, to me, is going to be a really interesting one. They lost Jack Dunn, 30 RBIs, Peyton Blair, 13 ribbies, Joey Friedel, 28 RBIs, Brady O'Brien, 15, Bodie Hale, 13 RBIs. I mean, that's a lot of run production, guys. So when you're talking about the bats, you got 3 seniors. The only one that really stood out was on that junior list. And offensively, I think they could struggle. It'll be interesting to see how they get off. But their strength is in their pitching. Gavin Rydell was 4-1 with a 1.69 ERA. Carter Atkins, 4-0 with a 2.00 ERA. Carter Cox was 5-4 with a 2.79. And then you had Connor Hankey, who was 4-2 with a 3.88 ERA. So they have, again, you're looking at a pitching staff that's got experience, that can go out there and put up zeros inning after inning, and it'll be interesting to see how their bats go, Matt. I'm sorry I caught you mid-drink.
No, you're good. Just drinking on the job. I think the key for South is the unknown juniors, because that class for them as a whole is a solid class. And I'm not saying they have a bunch of Power 5 D1 guys, but they have a lot of kids that have played together for a long time, that have come up together, and it makes a big difference because they know each other. Now they're finally on varsity as a group. So the junior class for them, even back when they were in 8th grade, or even freshman year, that was a really good class. A few of them played up last year, as you guys discussed. Outside of that, I think the wild card for them, and the kid that I am most interested to see how he does, is Connor Hinkey. Because Connor Hinkey is tall, he's skinny, he can sling it, but he can spin it. And he's got a legit spinner, and he throws strikes. And that's whenever we discussed, like we had Carter Cox. I mean, Carter Cox fit the bill, right? He's lefty, threw hard, but, he was having to dial it down to get it over, and he got rattled quickly, where Hinkey can control his emotions. He's actually, I think, has upside from a college perspective because he's tall and skinny. And the kid works. I know he plays basketball, but that's their wild card on the mound. And I think the wild card for them as a whole is the junior class where people haven't really been, I guess, they haven't been introduced to the kids yet because they haven't played varsity yet.
And Kevin, the one kid in here, again, I look at catchers. Here's Connor Mendel, who was the starting catcher as a sophomore last year, hit 273 with a 418, 331 home run, 12 RBIs. And he was good behind the plate, wasn't he?
Yeah, and, to play varsity as a freshman or sophomore is one thing, but then to do it from behind the plate as a catcher, that's impressive, and that you should see some real growth there, with a year of varsity experience under his belt. Look for him to be one of the team leaders, and I agree with Matt. This will kind of be led, juniors are going to be a big story in this Zumwalt South season. And, 2 years ago, they were in the state Final Four. So proud program, a lot of good history here. Zumwalt East kind of topped them last year, so I'm sure, and that's obviously a huge rival. They're going to be looking to get that back on them. So it's going to be a fun watch. And they still had a really nice season. They won 20 games. They were 20-9 last season, so they had a good year. But can they take that next step? It's going to be fun to watch.
Yes, it will. It'll be, and I think you might have a 2-year window. They could really be, those juniors, junior heavy class seniors. They got 2 years where they could really make good runs into the state championship. I really do. Coach Friedel does a good job getting those kids prepared, so it's very, very easy to see. Number 4, we got the fourth place Class 5, Fort Zumwalt East District champs, and they have 8 returning seniors, but they lost some kids that I thought really made that team work in Luke Aubuchon, Parker Davis, and Alex Hebner. Those 3 guys were huge as far as leadership. And Alex Hebner, 32 runs scored with 12 RBIs. Aubuchon, 28 runs scored. He played shortstop. And as the closer, he came in and closed games. He had a 0.00 ERA. So when Aubuchon came in, the game was over. That's huge to have. And then you had Parker Davis over in left field. He hit 337 with 20 RBIs. Those are going to be big losses for those guys, and it'll be interesting to see. But as we talk about underclassmen guys with this, I think we're back to the juniors here again with Fort Zumwalt East. Kevin?
Yeah, and this happens with high school. You lose good seniors, but now there's going to be a chance for 2 guys to step up that I think could be stars this year. Jackson Carter is one of the fastest players in the state. Played center field and started for him as a sophomore. And Eric Williams is a big-time bat, hit over 400 for him. So I look for those guys to kind of be leaders and kind of breakout candidates to be, some of the top players in the St. Louis area this year. And kind of a bonus one that I'm going to throw at you. They have a freshman that's going to have a really good chance to make varsity. Brennan Pyle is one of the top freshmen in the state. He's already committed to Mizzou, infielder. You don't want to count on a freshman, put too much on a kid. But I think this kid's got a chance to, we'll see what Coach Hill wants to do. I'm not saying that he should or shouldn't, but he will have a chance to, in my opinion, create an impact for a varsity team. We'll see how Coach Hill decides to, go with his development and what team he decides to put him on. But there's some talent coming up through the Zumwalt East. They lost some good ones, but they got some good ones coming up too. So they should be able to replace this.
Obviously I agree with Kevin. Out of all the picks, this is the one I probably question the most.
Okay.
Just because I think, like what Kevin said, I think the future, not that the seniors aren't good, but I think the future for them to really make a run, make a legit run for state, it's in a couple years when all the real, legit Power 5 talent comes up. Carter Hollingsworth, obviously, he's got another year coming, another year for him where he played last year. And then the juniors that were named. But I think they've got their seniors that will lead them, but I think for them, the future is where they can say, hey, we can actually go into this season and make a state run.
Okay.
I don't see it this year.
Okay. And,
but then again, I haven't picked a bracket correctly yet. So who knows?
You like the pieces, and I think it's interesting. The wild card is what I think Kevin brought, Brendan Pyle. I think that's the wild card here. And
yeah,
I think
he
that
could play.
Give them. I want to see who's going to play shortstop. Because you're losing Abashan, who's going to fill that hole? And I think that's an interesting question there. And I know it's not Pyle because Pyle's not an infielder, correct?
No, he is an infielder. And that's kind of like the age-old question is, Coach Hill's going to have some interesting decisions to make. Eric Williams is, he was a third baseman. I think profiles as a third baseman or second baseman, but he probably played a really nice high school shortstop too.
Right.
Or you got a freshman that is super talented. I don't know if you want to put that on a kid, so there's probably a couple other kids within the program. So that's going to be fun. Those are problems, probably good problems to have if you're Coach Hill. You got some talented guys, and how he navigates that will be kind of fun to watch. And tip of the cap to those guys making their first appearance in the state Final Four last year. A great run, and was really fun to follow those guys last spring. And we'll see how what they do for an encore. I want to give a real quick. Jackson Penn's coming back. They got Lucas McGill, who was 9-2 with a 2.92. He's the one that really finished that season for him. That lefty doesn't throw hard, but I love the way Lucas McGill competes. He's a competitor. He's not overpowering, but he's a competitor. And he'll be one of the keys to the team, obviously. They need him to be an ace, and he can pitch, and he can beat some good people, and he's going to need to do so for East to have any sort of a chance this year to repeat what they did last year.
Exactly. So, all right, Francis House Central. It might be a stretch. I don't know, but I'm looking at a couple things here as we go. They were 23-14, 10 returning seniors. They won their district. They lost Clayton Elo, which I think is huge. 389 with 17 RBIs. He was 4-1 with a 2.63 ERA. They lost Jeff Fernley, who was 4-2. Jaden Jones, who provided 36 runs, 25 RBIs, 4 home runs. Evan Muir hit 324. 468, 405, 13 runs. So they've got some holes to fill, but they got some guys offensively that I think contributed huge last year with Caleb, I believe it's Cheatham, hit 321, 472, 357 with 16 runs. Aiden Hernandez, 434, 315, 575, a home run, and 34 RBIs. Wyatt Miller, Quentin Klusner, both hit well over 300. And then they've got the pitching to get this done. And I think in the pitching, of course, the wild card coming off injury is Lane Harris. Matt, I'll let you
I would
know.
agree with you on the Lane Harris part. I think he's key for them. They've got Rubel,
Yep.
who I believe Maryville.
Yes.
Is that right? So
Yes.
they've got a couple good arms. They're very, very senior heavy,
Yes.
and we'll see what happens with them. They also are another school that they've got some younger kids that are going to come through that are good. That have, again, it's kind of like a Zumwalt South where they've been playing together for a while. So that'll be interesting. I think if there's a team similar to what Holt was last year with all the seniors, and you're like, okay, here we go, they're going to be scary. And I think last year when they played it, there was kind of the same situation. People didn't want to play them. Like that was a team you didn't want to play.
Right.
So just having the leadership and the seniors and having Harris they're going to be a team, I think, that's going to give a lot of people some issues.
And to your point, the junior here, Benjamin, I think it's Henthram. 5-2 with a 2.78 ERA. That's adding to that depth at pitching, and we always talk about pitching depth, Kevin.
Yeah, and this House Central team, to me, they're kind of shifting roles this year. Last year, in my eyes at least, they were one of the more pleasant surprises of the season. They had a great season, won 23 ball games, took Howell to the brink in districts, gave them all they could have ever wanted, had a great season, probably overachieved, extremely well coached. Now it kind of shifts to where there's some expectations this year. I think they're going to be better this year than they were last year. So it's going to be, how do you handle that? How do you deal with that? And it's still, you're swimming with sharks still in that conference. So it's they're going to it's going to be fun to see how that unfolds this spring for them as well.
And Rubel, that was a great quarterfinal between Howell and Howell Central. Rubel pitched a great game. Just Nuputi was better.
That's great. And Rubel's a guy that's in the mid 80s, can bump an 88 or 87, and will be fun to see if he and how he progressed this off season. Obviously heading to Maryville University, so they got when if Lane Harris is back healthy. That's a really good one too, and they have some pitching and some depth there to have a nice run.
So number 2 here, familiar face, Coach Goff. They never. It always, when I'm looking at this and I'm looking at names, they were 30-9 last year, and you had a couple of big names. Of course, Daniel Whistler went on to Mizzou. Had a great season, both offensively, on the mound. Dylan Bates. I think, didn't Bates, he's at Quincy, right? Am I correct?
No, Bates is at Missouri S&T?
Missouri S&T. You're losing Ryan Ulm behind the plate, big catcher there.
Quincy.
He went to Quincy, that's right. Carter Smith, Connor Stein, who was kind of that catalyst of that team. I mean, he made that engine run. And so I think that's going to be interesting this year for Zumwalt West. I think they're going to have to rely on some kids that may be coming up you haven't seen before, but you got Aiden Copeland coming back, 429, 556, 429, with only 9 plate appearances. I put that there because, you get 9 at-bats, usually maybe 250, but, this kid was productive with 9 at-bats. That shows well. It wasn't overwhelming. You got Coach's son, Cody Goff, coming back, Mickey Ludwig, is coming back there, 290, 436, 23 runs, 10 RBIs. Cooper Robertson, who may be behind the plate this year. Right, Kevin? That's a big possibility.
Good chance to be, yes. I know he's been catching. Be interesting to see what Coach Goff does.
Right, and so he at 293, 440, 354, 20 runs, 21 RBIs. Brendan Shane, another young man that had 26 plate appearances, 500, 577, 545. That's pretty good with 26 plate appearances. You know, you get a little bit of run up there. And, of course, the shortstop, Nick Alagna, 300, 442, 333, 27 runs, 13 RBI. Played a great shortstop for them as a sophomore. So there's some question marks here, but they seem to be able to retool. And on the mound there, of course, you still have that number one arm, the lefty, Kenton Deverman.
This team is the one that intrigues me the most.
Okay.
Out of all of them, just because what they lost and what's coming back. Deverman obviously is a big key for them. I think Robertson's a big key for them too. I'm assuming he's catching unless there's somebody that's coming up that we don't know that they're going to put in place. But these guys, they're just solid ball players. Like overall, they just have solid ball players and they just find ways to win. You know what I mean? Like whenever we watched them, they don't really make a whole lot of mistakes. Caught the baseball, throw strikes, catch the baseball, stay in the game, and let's find a way to win. Right. That's what they've done in the past, and can they continue to do that is key. But I think for me, it's Deverman is obviously he's going to Evansville, right? I think he's the Evansville one, right?
Evansville.
Yes.
Good lefty, and Robertson. And then obviously Alagna's coming back. He's the David Eckstein of the crew is what I called him last year.
I agree.
Yeah.
You're right. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. He seemed like a great kid, worked hard, was happy to be there having fun. But yeah, this is I'm going to be they lost a lot. But they also have a lot coming back. But we'll see. We'll see what they do, but this one intrigues me.
And I think it's interesting because I heard a lot about their JV squad last year. They were really good. I think they lost one game, so I don't know much about them. And so I think that's the intriguing thing. And Kevin, behind Kenton Deverman, that's where you're going to have to see. I think that's the biggest unknown with this team is the depth at the pitching staff.
Yeah, no, they do have a bunch of good young players, and this is one of those programs that just seems to have an assembly line of players. They'll graduate some good ones, and then they got some new ones coming up that are really good behind them, and it seems like it's that way every year. And I feel like with these rankings you've done, we kind of have them in tiers, and I think these 1, 2 are kind of in a class by themselves. Obviously, coming off a 30-win season, there's a lot to like about this ball club. Deverman's a special arm. That's a true number one. They certainly have the it factor. And a freshman to keep an eye on. When we talk about, playing varsity or not playing varsity, this would qualify as one of those schools where it's really hard for a freshman to make the varsity team. But there's a kid named Nolan Sissom that is committed to Mizzou. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a sniff at the varsity or if he's stays on the JV. Certainly, this is a super talented team that doesn't necessarily need to bring up a freshman out of necessity. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. But he is extremely talented and a name that you will know sooner rather than later. I don't know if it'll be this year or next year, but that'll be one to keep an eye on.
And then, gentlemen, as we finish this, number one here, the elephant in the room. When I started looking at the, go ahead, Matt.
No, I don't know about elephant in the room. I think it's pretty obvious who number one is.
and that's what I mean. I started doing this, and I'm looking at this, and they were 32-10. Of course, everybody knows they finished third last year. They lost Jake McCutcheon, who, 482, 544, 52 runs. He scored 52 runs. Of course, he was at the top of the lineup. But to score 52 runs, those guys below him got to be really good. And not to mention, he had 52 runs scored, but he also knocked in 38. My goodness, that's almost 100 runs, guys. Just out of one player that you're losing.
What a great season for him. And his name crossed my mind when I brought up how important Josh Newell was to the St. Charles West and how that was the key loss. And here's why you can say Newell. Naputi, Norfleet, Rogers, yes. Holtman, Miller, Wilson, Johnson, Alex Bryan, Sissel, Shipley, Humbert. So,
right. And you're exactly right. When you start looking at that, Matt, you just kind of go, wait a minute. I understand the arms and I understand a Hatchman, but this offense is going to make Hatchman be that. He's going to have to be that special every pitch.
So here with Francis Howell, how do they beat Hatchman? Because of who they have coaching the team. Because they will bunt, and they will bunt again, and they will bunt again. You have a bunch of D1 players on this team.
Yes.
But they will play small ball. They'll play like a legit college team. We need to win the game. That's the difference, I think, with this squad. If you take all the kids on this team and you put them on, and nothing against any other coach in the conference, but if you take these kids and put them on a different school, it's not they're good. Like, yeah, they have a chance to win. But it's not the same because when you play Francis Howell, if Naputi's up and there's a guy on second, there's nobody out, and they're in the last inning, he's probably going to bunt him.
Yeah.
And he's going to San Jac, which is one of the top 10 JUCOs in the country. It's in Texas, by the way, for those that don't know. And other coach would be like, you know what? It's our best kid. Let's just see him hit it. And he would not. I mean, he literally would bunt. Right. And I think that's the key for them is not only do they have all the talent, but he also has talent at the freshman level. He has talent at the sophomore level. And obviously we're looking at all the juniors that played varsity last year. And now you look at all these seniors they have. They have a grind, I think. I think they felt like they came short last year.
I agree.
And I think they thought last year they should have won it. I think coming back, I think that's where the coaching comes in, where he says, look, I don't care who ranks us wherever. Our goal is to win the whole thing. Mm-hmm. If we don't win the whole thing, then we didn't do very good this year. And we have something to prove because we didn't win it last year.
And, Kevin, you've seen it, and you guys, we've been there. Brett Norfleet will bunt. I mean, he's hitting in a 3-hole, and you got Brett Norfleet knocking down bunts to move guys.
And before we hand this to Kevin, here's the thing I think about them is you take the Yankees when they won 3 in a row, when Joe Torre stepped in and said, okay, what do I tell them after we just won the World Series? I tell them we need to 3-peat or bust. It's a 3-peat or bust. So then it's, hey, now we have multiple years to look at. Like, if we don't win this year, we didn't 3-peat. If we don't win the next year, we didn't 3-peat. I think he has that mentality with them where it's either we win it or it's bust. And this year, they really have something to prove because I think they should have won it last year.
Kevin.
Yeah, I look at this roster, and I remember thinking this at the state playoffs last year, the 6A Final Four, and I looked at 3 of the 4 teams, and Howell is certainly one of these teams. I think they're better this year than they were last year, from a talent perspective. I don't have many questions about this roster. Brett Norfleet led the state in homers last year. He's back. Naputi's one of the stars in the area, both offensively and on the mound. You got a proven catcher in Rogers. You got Wilson at third. Titus Sissel is one of the better juniors in the area, heading to Mizzou. And then you got guys like Alex Bryan, who got a little varsity experience last year that's going to come into the fold and help on the mound a lot. Adam Shipley is a power arm. Leo Humbert is a game changer, and he's a sophomore. Started varsity as a true freshman He's getting all sorts of recruiting interest from Power 5 schools. So this is a big time team, and I'm not saying they're going to have trouble getting out of district just because it's so challenging. But this is a team that could absolutely be your state champions in the 6A level. It's that type of roster and that type of coaching and program. So it's going to be one of the key teams in the state this year.
And to the point that you made earlier and what Matt was alluding to, you look at these guys. Because I went through statistics, but you look it up and down this lineup. Naputi had 33 runs, 28 RBIs. Norfleet, 40 runs, 54 RBIs. Aiden Rogers, 22 runs, 24 RBIs. Holtman, 18 runs, 24 RBI. Caleb Miller, 23 runs, 20 RBI. Brady Wilson, 21 runs, 28 RBI. You have Sissel, Titus Sissel, 28 runs, 25 RBIs. Shipley, 22 runs, 24 RBIs. Humbert, 32 runs, 20. I mean, these are all double digits. These guys, it's an offense that is geared to just put the ball in play. They score, they run, they go. And I think the pitching, it'll be interesting to see if Norfleet pitches. I know you talked about Shipley. And here's one of the things that I think is interesting. You got Adam Shipley coming off a run as the quarterback of the Class 5 state championship team. This kid understands leadership. I mean, and this kid is right there in the mix of that. I think this team is poised to make a huge run, personally. That's why I have them at number 1.
Yeah, I'll be shocked if they're not in the Final Four.
Right? I mean, it's going to be a tall task. You're going to have a Hatchman or a Will Libbert. I don't think Blair Oaks isn't there, but
they're 4A. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the guys across the state there in Kansas City.
The only thing that scares you, to me, they are the number 1 team. That it's clear cut. The only thing that scares you about our playoff system is you get in a single elimination, and let's say Timberland's the 4 seed, and you face Adam Hatchman one day, and then the next day, if you somehow beat him, then the next day you get Deverman. I would still favor Howell. I would pick them, but it's not unfathomable for them to get upset. Certainly, in a 1-game single elimination deal, a lot can happen, and there's a lot of talent as we just rolled through these top 10. So it'll be, whoever gets out of this thing will have earned it for sure.
Absolutely. Guys, I appreciate it. Appreciate your input. Again, like I said, and I don't mean this to just, but we talk about this is youth baseball. This is YBMcast. This is our power rankings for the GAC. I put these things together myself. The guys come on to give their input, and I appreciate that very much. This is fun to talk about. I really enjoy this part of it because we really can kind of get to the nuts and bolts of teams, start looking at squads. We'll look at the other 8 teams in the GAC. I know it's not fun. You kind of look at guys that are 4. Last year the St. Charles was 4-22, but who are they? We want to look at all of the GAC, so we'll do that and we'll see where they get to. But we'll start here. I think this is a great place to start as we start rolling toward the season, guys. So appreciate it. Good stuff, man. Kevin, fist bump, boom, there you go. Boom, there it is. Love it. Hey, as you're watching, please, let's see what's your power rankings. If you disagree, please put a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. That's what this is about. We don't always say we're always right. There's some interesting dynamics here that we'll see. Please hit the subscribe button if you're watching for the first time. We'd love to have you back. Hit that dinger right there because that's what we do around here.
We hit dingers.
Dingers, baby. And that will get you all of your notifications for upcoming episodes. Like it, share it. We appreciate the support out there. You can also follow us Instagram and on Twitter. Twitter is at YBMcast or at YBM_cast. And then, of course, on Instagram, Youth Baseball Midwest. Follow these fine gentlemen, Midland Redskins, right? Midland Bandits.
Midland Baseball.
Midland Baseball, sorry.
Yes.
I knew that, and I messed it up, didn't I?
It's all right. I've had worse things happen to me.
Kevin's also Twitter, Instagram, PBR_Moulder. I got that one right? And PBR Missouri. So great stuff. These guys are always throwing out stuff with baseball, keeping up with it. I appreciate them coming on the show and giving us their opinions. Because that's what they are. Right?
That's right. Well, Kevin's are facts, but mine are opinions.
Mine's definitely opinions. Kevin, thanks. Take care. Matt, thanks as always, guys. Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes. And hitters,
hit them where they ain't.
Good advice. We'll see y'all next time.